I'm gonna go ahead and kick this off. I think we have a fairly busy agenda. Hi everyone. My name is Diane Keough. Welcome to the I2B2 community meeting. We usually meet every other month, and every once in a while we skip a month, skip a meeting because of an AMIA meeting or something like that. So I think it's been a while since we met. I'm excited about this agenda and let me move forward. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a quick little overview of the symposium that will be taking place in June. It's just 3 months away. It seems like every year this comes sooner and sooner. Um, and then I want to mention about asking your help to help us promote the I2B2 community. Let me save that for last. And then we have a really great presentation from Jeff Plan and Griffin Weber that will talk about what's in 1.8.3. And what we decided to do is instead of just going into the itsy bitsy things in the polishing of 1.8.3, Jeff is going to give you sort of an overview of how 1.8.1, 2, and 3 kind of fit together to close the loop on a lot of things. So I'm super excited about his presentation. We are fortunate enough that we're going to be able to include a lot of the work that Griffin is doing with the Math CPR UI visualization in 1.8.3. So it's going to be a pretty rich release that we hope to get out in the next few months. And then Griffin's going to talk a little bit about some UI color themes that he and the group have been, the UI working group have been playing with to try to get you some feedback around the look and feel and colors of I2B2. So let me jump right in. All right. All right. So once again, the symposium will be in June in Boston. It'll be on the 9th and the 10th at the usual place. So we hope that we will see you then. As usual, we'll have a virtual component for folks that aren't able to attend the whole session. So let me just give you a really quick overview of the agenda. So the focus is around using EHR data to support public health. And that comes out of our mass CPR work that we're doing. And I'm really excited about our keynote speaker, Monica Barral, who is the clinical lead for global health and public health at Google. Prior to that, she was the Massachusetts Commissioner of Public Health. So she's got I've seen some of her talks online, and I think she's got a really exciting talk that will be super relevant to our work and also pretty exciting. Uh, Zach Kohani will be back to talk about his work in AI, and his focus will also be around AI, the need to support public health. So those two speakers will be great. So I mentioned Monica. We have a Mark Johnson from the University of Missouri, who's an expert on wastewater data and using wastewater data. So he has agreed to come and speak to us around that topic, which will be pretty flush with data. Yeah, this is his title. So that'll be exciting. And then we'll have Zach talk, and then we're going to have a panel. So we've got four different panelists. Bill Adams from Boston Medical Center, Jamal Matthews from Wisconsin. Um, Griffin will talk about mass CPR, and then Gigi Lepori will cover the Florida digital twin. So we're real excited about that. That's the morning. The afternoon will be focused on a little update on our computed phenotypes and federated learning, and then we'll have a panel discussion on enclaves. Well, we're going to bring the ENACT use cases in, aim ahead, mass CPR. And also Sean will be talking about a use case around Hero. And then we'll have a talk around drug discovery, how drug discovery is failing the patients who need it most. And the focus is around how AI can be used to kind of support that. Sandy Aronson from AI with Care they're actually sponsoring the symposium. We'll talk about the application that they've built using large language models to support clinical trials. And then Abdu Mosa will be talking about some of the work that they've integrated I2B2 into their pipeline to support finding patients in clinical trials. So that's day one. Day two will have an update from our working groups, ontology and user interface. And then the rest of the day will be an I2B2 workshop. And this will be a hands-on workshop. Jeff Clan and his folks have done this workshop many times at AMIA, and they're gonna rework that workshop to focus on a lot of the new features in I2B2, but also so it'll be really great for existing users and also new users. So that hasn't been completely worked out yet, but really excited about that. So that's the symposium. Here are our sponsors, and let me hand it. Any questions before I hand it over to Jeff? No, great, great. Jeff, I'm going to, right, somebody wants to, sorry, I tried to accept that. Somebody wanted to, okay, all right. Jeff, I'll let you take it from there.
All right, great. Thanks, Diane. And I can share. Cool. My sharing the screen is over here, so I'll be looking to the side, but rest assured I'm talking to all of you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're working on for 1.8.3. And as I mentioned, as we got to talking last week, we thought, well, what's been the journey? Where are we going? Why are we doing this stuff for 1.8.3? And actually, there's a pretty compelling story for what we've been doing in the 1.8.x releases. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. So 1.8.3 coming this summer. This is, I think, everybody who's been involved in I2B2 in a major way in the Harvard MGB system. But I'm sure I'm missing people still. So if you don't see your name up here, complain to me, and I'll add you to this increasingly busy slide. So the 1.8.x platform evolution. So a few years ago, we incremented from 1.7.13 all the way to 1.8.0. And that signaled kind of a new era of I2B2. And the thing that triggered it was the user experience overhaul. So we built an entirely new user interface, much the same look and feel and workflow as before, but with modern user interface elements. Everything is much more draggable and droppable. It's been much more expandable with a whole new plugin architecture. So then in 1.8.1, we started to focus in on data export. And 1.8.1 was the initial step in data export. We wanted to provide line level data export. So give me all of the medications on a cohort of patients, give me all the diagnoses on a cohort of patients, and plug that into 1.8.1. In 1.8.2, we dramatically enhanced that data export feature. We wrote new components to make it easier for managers to handle the data export, and we built this new tailored table creation plugin. So rather than just getting line level data on diagnoses and medications and all the different domains, you can choose specific data elements and the kind of specific aggregation you want for those data elements. So like patient's highest A1C value, or patient's first date of asthma diagnosis, etc. And then going into 1.8.3, we're closing the loop is the term we came up with. We are putting everything together for using all these I2B2 features in large scale deployments. And the new core features are about monitoring and administrative oversight of the I2B2 instance. Also, we've been adding these administrative tools. So the 1.7.13 had an old style admin interface that pieces of it were broken and it didn't look very nice. 1.8.0, you still had to use the old admin interface if you wanted to admin I2B2. So in 1.8.1, we launched this brand new admin tool. Everything in it actually works and you can administer projects. And we've been enhancing it ever since um, to the point where you can much more easily add new projects in 1.8.3. So this is the 1.7.x classic UI. It looks a little bit functional, but a little bit like a Commodore 64 computer. And this is the new UI, much the same workflow. You have more modern looking user interface elements, more things are resizable. It's a vertical layout and it's very expandable. 1.8.1, we introduced the line level data export and the admin tool. This is the workflow that we developed for the line level data export. So a user runs a query on a cohort of interest. And there's a new section. I'm not sure if you can see my pointer, but I'm pointing to the data requests at the bottom of run query options. There's a new data request section where a user can request different types of data. That triggers an email to be sent to a manager. And then that manager, based on that email and a little flag that shows up in the previous queries, can rerun the user's query and choose one of their special data export options to actually generate the files, which can then be delivered to the user. So usable, a little bit awkward. We improved that a lot in the next version. This is the admin tool. On the left, you can see looking at all of the users, and you can look at their name, their username, whether they're an admin. You can edit all of those characteristics. Here's on the right panel is editing projects. So you can look at all the different projects and some of the configuration parameters of the project, and you can edit all of these. Now in 1.8.3, it's very easily editable for the projects in particular. And since 1.8.1, you could administer the users in the project. So you can look at, actually, if I go back, if you click on the little person next to the project that you're interested in, it shows you the users and their access level to the project, and you can associate new users to the project or change access level or remove users. It's quite easy to use. Uh, and also in 1.8.1, we added official OMOP support to the I2B2 platform. It's something that had been available in some form as a community plugin for a while, but thanks to a lot of work that well, we all did, but Michelle Morris did in building some pretty amazing ontologies that incorporate OMOP terms, we can now support OMOP instances directly in I2B2. This is showing the architecture of that. So I2B2 has a query tool, this is the old query tool, that communicates via an XML interface to the server. So it's not database specific, it's describing cohort queries. And then the server can talk to the I2B2 data model. It's always been able to do that, but the task is only to make the server talk to the OMOP data model, which we do with some clever, with a couple of backend features and some clever database tricks with views that allows the I2B2 to see the OMOP tables kind of as it would see I2B2 tables. This is an advantage because now all these sites that have OMOP, and this is at some point in history, these were sites that had at least created some kind of OMOP instance. These sites can all become I2B2 users and take advantage of the graphical and query tools and the tailored data export. Technically, this is the secret sauce. At the base of the ontology are OMOP codes, so the non-standard and standard codes, which I think is ICD-10 and SNOMED, and those reference OMOP IDs that then can reference the OMOP tables and get your OMOP data directly out of I2B2. Um, Back to the data export thread. In 1.8.2, we have created this tailored table creation um, that allows for robust data delivery. And we've also enhanced the admin tool. So this is the data export workflow in 1.8.2. The user first can design a table. And this is the only screenshot I have of this in this presentation because I've shown a lot of screenshots of this table builder. But basically what happens is you drag over items from the ontology, and then you can set constraints like date constraints, and you can choose your aggregation like existence, first date, average value, things like that. And then after you've run your data request, and note you can still run the old style data requests, the medication, diagnoses, procedures. Then manager is still informed via email, but also they have this new management console where they can look at the pending and completed data requests and go through those, look at the what's being requested, see the details, see how many patients it will involve if they allow it to be exported, and click a button, and a bunch of machinery happens on the back end, and the file becomes available on the server. And then sites can set up a specific process like SFTP or shared file system or some shared file folder to deliver that file to the user. And you'll note in here you can still create all these old style line level data tables using the new management interface, or you can create these custom tables. Um, so 1.8.3, to close the loop, we're adding monitoring and administrative oversight. And these are some in-progress screenshots of 1.8.3. This is the activity and usage monitoring plugin. So this is viewing activity for all projects. You can see an overview of the number of users, the types of users, how many new users, how many login attempts, and how many of them were successful, how many users are currently in the system. And then you can zoom into a particular project and get a little bit more detail even. You can see query activity and top user query activity um, over time. You can also look at the access levels of particular users. This is similar to the admin interface, except you're not editing it here. You're just getting a quick look at what users have access to your project. And you can also look at the query history of particular projects, which topically is similar to previous query window, but this gives you more access to all of the previous queries in a particular project. And that's my preview of 1.8.3. Now these are just the slides that I always show at the end to remind you of these important websites to go to learn more about I2B2. Community.i2b2.org is all the documentation, and it's being revamped, but it's still being maintained in its current form. So check that out. The Google group, which has active discussion, it's called Install Help, but it's not just about installing I2B2. It's about everything. And i2b2.org, especially i2b2.org/software, where you can actually get the tool. Or you can get it from our GitHub, which has the source code if you want to tinker with it yourself. And our issue tracking is now on GitHub and GitHub issues also. And so that is that is the journey that we've been on and are going on. And I'll stop there. Figure out where my sharing button is and stop sharing.
Thank you, Jeff. That was great.
Thanks.
We'll open it up for questions before we move to Griffin. Yeah. Before, if there's no questions, before we move to Griffin's
Can I just say one thing?
yeah.
I
Yep.
have to comment on the slides. Those are some of those amazing looking slides I've
I
ever
agree.
seen. I mean, come on, you know.
Jeff,
It's
The-
him and his Chat GPT friends are
no, he
killing.
got a PhD in graphic design. What are you
That's
talking
right.
about?
I did.
Apparently.
It took me months.
They were
Yeah,
beautiful, Jeff. Beautiful.
thank you. There was a little chat GPT in there, but also Google Slides has a new button that you can click on that says beautify this slide. And I did that sometimes.
Wow.
It made my slide better.
I need
Very
that for
good.
my face.
Stop.
That's great. So Mark has his hand raised. Mark.
Hi, great presentation. Thank you. I have one question about the data export, and I'm wondering, you mentioned that in 183 you'll be adding the enterprise level of monitoring stuff. Is there any change to the data export in 1.8.3?
Bug fixes and minor improvements. No major changes. No.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Mark. Just one comment, and I'm not going to go into this in a whole lot of detail, but I just wanted to mention in the next like 3 or 4 months or so, we're going to be rolling out a new website, ITB2 website, that is really going to sort of be focused on helping people understand what I2B2 is, and it'll have use cases on it and demos and because when you go to our current website it doesn't we talk about open source and community and all this kind of stuff but it's not clear what we do, so I'm really excited about the new website. And the one thing that we wanted to add a section on some of the major groups that are using I2B2. So we can pull out Enact and Aim Ahead and Recover's using it to support some of the major ones that are out there. But we also would like to highlight hospitals. And in the open source world, it's really hard for us to know like who's actually using it and how they're using it. So over the coming months, and I'll try to send this out in a newsletter, but it's hard to get feedback from a newsletter, and to try to solicit your input on who you are and how you're using it, and if you've got a great use case that you want to highlight. If you've created posters that highlight some of the projects that you've accomplished using I2B2. We'd love to be able to highlight your posters as well. So just wanted to mention that that you'll start to hear more from me about that. So Griffin, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to give two quick presentations today. They're really previews for topics we're going to go into much more depth at the symposium. So what I'm going to do is kind of related to what's going to be part of 1.8.3, but again, we'll talk more about these afterwards. The first is the Mass APR Data Network. This is a regional version of Shrine that we've installed in Massachusetts as part of something called the Massachusetts Consortium on Pathogen Readiness. It's a Shrine network for purposes of research and public health use cases related to infectious disease. Again, I'm not going to talk much about this network today. What I want to focus on is our enhancements we made to the 1.8.3 web client for the Mass CPR network, but it's available for any I2B2 site, and I'll show you what those look like. But just quick overview of what this network is. It's a Shrine network that connects different electronic health record data sets, but it also includes data that we're pulling from public health data sources like wastewater pathogen levels, as well as eventually integrating with biobanks and biospecimens. And the network is intended for various use cases, including retrospective infectious disease research, finding sites for clinical trials, pharmacovigilance for vaccines or other therapies for infectious diseases. Once we get the biospecimens linked in, There's always resource allocation questions related to specimens, and then the overall goal of this network is to improve pathogen readiness. So Jeff mentioned this a bit. I'll kind of reiterate it. We started with original web client back in 2020 for the ACT network. We did an exercise to try to redo the UI for Shrine. We had a number of focus groups, usability studies. It was really focused on what we called novice users. These were clinicians, residents, postdocs who may have not used electronic health record data before in research, and this is their first time trying to do it. And the goal was sort of simplicity and reducing the bar to accessing these kinds of data. It was initially just for Shrine, but I2B2 community really liked it. So in 2023, as part of 1.8.0, we revamped the I2B2 user interface to have the same kind of look and feel as Shrine. For the Mass APR data network, what we did was some modifications on the back end on the web client that allowed the I2B2 web client to directly query a Shrine network. And one of the main reasons we did that was because I2B2 has breakdowns and plugin support, and the Mass APR use case had many different kinds of these analyses and visualizations that would have been very difficult to add into the Shrine user interface, but could be done in a very modular way in the I2B2 UI. So there was this split for a while, but we've brought these things together again. So this is just an I2B2 web client with a Mass APR logo that you can build a query like normal, distribute it out to Shrine sites in the network and get counts back. We did a lot of work on refactoring the query results. So it used to be for each breakdown, you would get a bar chart with the breakdown categories and bins, but there were a lot of new kinds of data that we want to bring back and different ways of visualizing them. So just an example, we can take any breakdown that comes in and pair it now with a library of different visualizations for that. So age still comes in different categories with counts, but we can now display it on a line chart for continuous data to show what that looks like. We could take the same data, there's a drop-down menu there. We can switch between different visualizations. So instead of a line chart, we can switch to a pie chart and view it that way, or view it in a more traditional bar chart. We can view it as a standard table. We can export it as CSV. It allows different groups to create their own ways of visualizing data and then pairing it with a mapping file to a particular breakdown. A new kind of breakdown, custom breakdown and visualization we made is called a table bar chart. So we've had in the ACT ontology a custom breakdown with SQL that brings back the top 20 diagnoses in a cohort. So 20 is about the maximum you can display in the standard I2B2 bar charts. But here we want to find all the top categories of diseases in a cohort. There may be a couple hundred of these, which you can't display that way. So here we're displaying it more in a table format where you can easily read the different groups and the counts. But we have this sort of mini bar graph on the side to help you more easily see the relative scales of these different items. So it's a breakdown similar to what we had before, but a new way of looking at it. Here we start to get into some more complex ways of doing this. So this is a custom SQL breakdown that returns categories of combinations of race, ethnicity, and sex. When you just look at it as a big long list, it's not as human readable. It may be a couple hundred triples of those demographic categories, but we have a custom rendering of this to put into an NIH style enrollment table. So it's easier to view this or copy it into a standard NIH form for a clinical trial. The data export, we have a standard CSV export, which will list all those items in the cell in one big long table. But we also have a CSV export in enrollment table format where it has these columns and rows. So it's in the way that you would expect for that. in the mass CPR use cases, they're very interested in spatial temporal visualizations. They want to understand where infectious disease outbreaks started and how they spread through a community. So, Michelle put a zip code ontology that I worked with her to develop into the ACT ontology. Here's now we can really leverage this. So it returns a breakdown of patient's location either by 5-digit, 3-digit zip codes or rolled up to the state level. You can visualize that on this map. You can either view the raw counts or normalize it by different methods, like the total population at your institution, zoom in and out in different ways. We also have we built a initial analysis tool that allows you to compare two different zip code visualizations, what's called a bipartite graph. And then here's a temporal visualization where we first define a cohort. So it might be all children at the hospital, for example. And this is a custom SQL that collects counts by month of different pathogens like COVID-19, influenza, RSV, and returns a huge list of this. Again, the raw list is difficult to read, but it's not meant to be in a big table or in a standard ITB2 bar chart. It's meant specifically to be paired with this visualization where it shows you the time course of these different pathogens in your population. And this is also an example of a plugin that can import data from other sources. So here within the Mass CPR network, we provided data from Massachusetts wastewater pathogen levels. So the black line, dotted line that's overlaid here are COVID-19 pathogen levels in the public health data, and that's overlaid on the information that's coming from the hospitals. When you get this plugin inside of the ITB2 web client, it's going to be in the software, but by default, it's not going to be displayed because you still have to enter in the breakdown, and you wouldn't get the wastewater data unless you had your own source within your own state of how to pull that in. So we have these tools there, but a lot of what I'm showing here is visualizations paired with the data and the breakdowns that you're defining. And this is an illustration of how we've configured this for the Mass CPR network, but you might configure these visualizations in a slightly different way. So I'll end with that. Just again, there's a library of new data visualizations that will be part of the 1.8.3 web client. We'll have scripts to generate the custom breakdowns that you would need to leverage some of these visualizations. But this is all very modular. You can build your own breakdowns or your own visualizations based on the kind of data that you're pulling together. Questions on that?
I actually have a question on 183. Is 183 going to have the shrine component built in it?
No,
No.
we are the brand new network. We want to work out some of those details more, but what
Okay.
you're going to get is the I2B2 web client that has all those visualizations in there.
Okay.
So these are visualizations you would run on an I2B2 instance. When we release an update of Shrine, then you would be able to use those on top of a Shrine network.
Okay.
But the
That's good.
visualizations understand Shrine data. So when you're in a one site version of this, it's giving you just that one number. If you're running this on top of a Shrine network, when you, for example, select download the CSV file, it's going to give you columns, one for each site. So these are sort of Shrine aware, I kind of call them, but we're not including in 1.8.3 the some of the backend components to get I2P2 to run on top of Shrine.
Okay. It's very pretty.
Thank you. All right. Do we want to jump into my next presentation?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. All right. This is more of a fun thing. This is not part of 1.8.3, but when we launched the Mass CPR network, the Mass CPR consortium had just completed a whole marketing exercise and brought in a company, and they had all new colors and look and feel and logos developed. So it just kind of brought up the question of about the I2B2 colors because our website colors with the bright blues and oranges are quite different than the new MassCPR colors, which are crimson and shades of gray. And one of the other things as part of 1.8.3 are that color definitions, which are used to be scattered across many different CSS files, are now consolidated in one config file. So it's really easy now to have different color themes or to change the color palette in I2B2 to match your institution's colors. So we did an exercise internally, and then we talked about this a little bit in the I2B2 users group of just the colors we have in I2B2, why we have them, and alternatives that you could think about. So this is just kind of a preview here. We'll have a whole discussion about this in our UI working group meeting and the symposium, but I just want to get you thinking about it now so you can bring your ideas in June. So this was, again, our transition from I2B2 1.7 to 1.8. We really wanted to emphasize for initially Enact and then for I2B2 ease of use of this. And these bright colors, they work great for that. I manage an I2B2 at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. We have many other tools. We have an OMOP, a Trinetics, Epic tools, and you have to get I2B2 to stand out in some way. So, of course, one of the key features are computed phenotypes and how we can get more accurate data, but I also pitch I2B2 as an easy tool that people can just jump on and don't have to go through the training or have the expertise that's needed in a lot of other tools. And these sort of bright colors, a lot of spacing here, makes it feel like an easy to use tool. What it reminds me of is on my kid's iPad when they're playing something like Candy Crush. It has those kind of big, bright, bold game colors, and it feels like a easy novice tool. The problem with that, though, is the MassCPR data network users are data scientists. They are epidemiologists. They're people from the public health agencies who work with data all the time in sophisticated data modeling tools. And pitching this as a simple, easy to use tool isn't right for that audience. I'm trying to pitch this as a data science tool where you can do spatial analyses and look at pathogen timelines. And this kind of question came up, is this the right design for that? So these are the kind of tools that data scientists are used to. RStudio is a free statistical package a lot of people use in medical schools. SAS in the hospitals, a commercial version. MATLAB for simulation. As you can see, there's blue in here, but most of it is gray. It's very dense. They want to see as many numbers and information as possible. And then the real color is brought in on the data visualizations. This is another thing, business intelligence, we're using in our CTSA called Tableau. Same kind of thing. It's about not so much colors and the design of it, but compressing things down so you see lots of information. And then the visualizations themselves are where the color can be brought into it. Other tools, OMOP and Trinetics, they have that same kind of thing, mostly gray, lots of dense information on it. But there's this thing, I like to call it the hospital blue. It's this dark blue that every hospital logo seems to have. And OMOP and Trinetics bring in that same kind of dark blue on the sidebar and the top bars. So I2B2 users have, for a long time, customized colors a bit to get it to fit better into their environment. At MGB, a lot of times they take I2B2 and desaturate it and gray things out, but still bring in some of the colors to highlight certain things to draw attention here, for example, to the query builder tool. So here again, we have I2B2. So great for novice users, but it might be a harder pitch to sell it as a data science tool if data scientists are used to using things that look like R and SAS and other programs like that. So we're just experimenting with different colors to see how colors can change the look and feel a bit. Now there's a lot more you can do. There's just spacing of things and the density of things and move. So there's much, much bigger UI design considerations that I'm not going to talk about today. We can bring that up in June. All I'm doing is with the exact same layout, how do the colors potentially change things? So here's just putting a darker blue at the top, and that makes it look a little bit more like a traditional hospital program. This is really desaturating it a lot, removing any extra components, so removing the top bars from the modules, removing all the borders around it. So this is a very minimalistic version of I2B2. It looks kind of a lot more like some of those other programs. It doesn't pop things out a little bit like the I2B2 usually does. So if we enhance it a little bit more, put some blue, dark blue on the top, put a little bit of borders in here. This is kind of a bit of a balance. In a couple of the meetings, the UI working group and some other internal inside of Harvard CTSA, people seem to like this. It seems there's different adjectives I've heard, either serious or more scientific or more professional. It's hard to nail it down, but this does have a different kind of feel to it than the bright colors that we normally have inside of I2B2. This is what this would look like, adding in those visualizations I just showed in my last presentations. And you really kind of start to see how this does look like an R or MATLAB type of interface with the variables and information on the left, and then the bright, colorful visualizations in the modules on the right. And then, putting it all together, we go from this sort of search tool for novice users to an analysis tool for data scientists. And I don't know if colors is the right thing for this or the only thing, but I'd love to hear people's comments, and we'll bring this up in the UI working group meeting at the June symposium. Both talking about colors and we'll review other I user interface wish lists that we've been collecting over multiple years now. Any quick thoughts on this before we wrap up?
Ultimately, Griffin, is all this going to be configurable?
Oh yeah, so as I mentioned, I2B2 Web Client has one file now where you set all the colors. So that's why it makes it easy to put these out. And we could eventually have I2B2 come with multiple color theme config files where you kind of pick one of them based on which one you like, or take one as a template and change the variables for your institution. But yeah, all the colors are now pulled out of the whole folder hierarchy inside the web client and brought to a top level file with where you can set all these set all the colors.
I like the idea of having a couple of different, 3 or 4 different options that people can, pick from. Whether you want Candy Crush, the easy Candy Crush, or the more toned down kind of like your serious view. And
I mean, I might actually keep the current I2B2 over at Beth Israel because that's the audience who uses it there. And then for the Massey PR network, use the gray one because I think that fits in better with Massey PR's website and overall logos and themes, and it looks more similar to the other programs that they use in that space.
any other comments about this or anything else we presented or anything else you have on your mind? Questions for the group?
Quick one from Dave Diamond. Griffin, you said that the wastewater monitoring was going to go away or not be there anymore. Will there be a way to plug in air quality monitoring or some things that are more ubiquitous across, a number of different organizations?
Yeah, the visualization itself has a method of importing a public health data set. So from Massey PR, we have an API that provides access to Mass CPR, Massachusetts wastewater information. We'll have a demo file that kind of just shows you how the visualization works, but you could put air quality or whatever feed you have, but you need to have that data feed. And the 1.8.3, all we're really doing is making changes to the web client. We're not publishing APIs or other things as part of that release. So the visualization is there, but you would have to have some source of the public health data in order to see it in that visualization.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other thoughts? Anybody else doing anything interesting with I2B2 they wanted to bring up or share? We'd actually love to have people from the community start to present at these meetings. The other thing I should mention is for the symposium, we'll be sending out a note to everyone, but we'd love for you to bring like a poster, something you've done around I2B2 or anything else and bring it to the symposium. And we can also post that on our website. Any other comments? Nope. All right. Aaron, I saw that. Did I see another Aaron pop up? Nope. I guess he's
switching devices. Sorry.
okay. Okay. Well, since you did that and you popped up, you have to say something, Aaron. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Everyone else wants to.
Well, let me just see if I can silence my phone and avoid the echo. As some of you know, hold on a second. It switches you very nicely from one device to another, but it doesn't turn it off. Here we go. So, as some of you know, my company Prognosis is in the process of moving features from the RPDR into I2B2. And we're going to make sure that so that the people using the RPDR can move over to I2B2 without having to lose any of their functionality. And we might have some, once we have a clear idea of what that will entail, we might be able to, we can certainly do a poster on that.
Maybe mention what the RPDR is. Not everybody knows what the RPDR is.
Really? It's the prototype for I2B2, the Research Patient Data Registry, created by Mr. Murphy. The original.
Yeah, that would be great if you had a poster. Because I think there's probably a gap of features that we're
making the gap list right now, in fact. So once we have the gap list, maybe we'll run it by some people, see if it's interesting enough to make it worth going through. The I2B2 has come a long way, and so there's less of a gap than we might have feared. But there's still some cool stuff in our RPDR.
There might be sites that have implemented those gaps, but never thought about sharing it. And it might already exist out there in different forms.
Yes. And we're trying to make sure everything we do gets uploaded to GitHub and compiled.
And Aaron, it's going to be running on Microsoft Fabric. And that might be
that's correct.
To folks.
Yes. Yeah. We're going to be, I don't want to assume too much architecture at this point because we're just trying to make it work on Fabric. But what we might be doing is bifurcating the administrative SQL from the query SQL, which would allow the query SQL to run on a different platform that might be less efficient at running the small administrative queries, but can be much more powerful on the larger queries.
That's great. All right. Well, as you put do your gap analysis, make sure you're looking at 1.8.3 as a.
We are.
Okay.
Yep.
Right. Reach out to us, and we'd be happy to help you with that.
Great.
That's great. Anybody else? Sean, why don't you tell people where you are right now? Maybe not everybody knows where you are.
Sure. I'm in the conference room at Mass General Brigham in
No.
Somerville.
I don't think that's what she meant,
I don't
Sean.
think so either, but that is the answer to her question. Yeah, so I'm uh, at University of Washington, CRIO there. The but obviously I'm also at MGB for uh, part of my time, so everything moves around.
Well, we're looking forward to the West Coast. We have Doug Bell on our here too. We're looking forward to the West Coast, like
Love the West Coast.
becoming the
Love it.
predominant I2B2. We'll get
Now's the
your
West Coast's chance. Doug and I are
Okay.
going to get in there and do it.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
it
Well,
up.
the hope is when Mass CPR becomes very, very like functional and active in the Massachusetts area, you'll be able to take that model and I know Gigi, you've got things going on in Florida as well, right? Like
Yeah. And Sean, I was supposed to be out there today, but my flight got canceled yesterday. I drove to Orlando and had a canceled flight. So,
Oh no.
Been a bunch of canceled stuff, I have to say. I don't know.
it's
it's a
okay.
little
Now I have a
weird.
It's
clear
been a
calendar,
nightmare
which is like,
traveling. Yeah. It's been a nightmare traveling these
yeah,
days. There was the whole TSA thing, and then there was all this
the
weather
weather.
that's delayed everything across, and then it's actually during spring break, which is like now. So everybody is like lined up in the airport everywhere, sleeping on mattresses or whatever they got. It's
I just
been,
went home.
We could have been vacationing in the Middle East and be stuck there. It could be worse, I suppose.
yeah, you're right. It could be
Yeah.
worse.
Well, the hope is things calm down for June and the weather's good in Boston in June. I can't guarantee that, but usually it is good. And people will show up. And if not, we've got the virtual option. But I think people getting together is really pretty exciting. So hoping to see everyone there. So wonderful. Anything else last minute? Otherwise, we'll give you 5 minutes back to if you're on the West Coast, eat your lunch or finish your breakfast if you're on the West. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining. We'll see you
Good to
next
see you.
time.
Thanks,
Bye.
Dan.